Now, as I mentioned earlier, part of the reason I've become so passionate about this issue is because producing Spring Awakening was like getting dunked in the accessibility pool for me. I was immediately immersed into this community, and hearing their stories, their concerns, their passion firsthand was an incredible catalyst of change for me, for my staff, and for anyone that's been fortunate enough to work with them. That's why when designing the event today, I wanted to make sure you had a chance to hear from representatives from the many different communities in the world of accessibility. And so I'm happy to introduce our distinguished panelists today. In no particular order, please welcome to the stage Victor Calise, yes, as in Game of Thrones Calise, as he just explained to me backstage. Victor is the commissioner from the mayor's office. Goring, Executive Vice President at Autism Speaks, David DJ Kurs, the Artistic Director of TDF, Annie Leist, Special Projects Lead from Art Beyond Sight. And last but not least, the woman who leads the charge for accessibility in our industry, the moderator of our panel, Ms. Victoria Bailey, the Executive Director.
Ken, it's great to be here. I think we've all just had the bar set very high for us in terms of this conversation. Thank you, Tim. I think we're now going to move from kind of the qualitative and aspirational conversation to a somewhat more practical conversation. And really the point of this panel is for me to talk with my colleagues and friends here who have so generously agreed to share some insights with us. We're going to talk for probably a little under half an hour. That's the time we have allotted to us. Panelists have all agreed to stay after, and they'll be available for questions after the program itself is over in the back of the theater. So to get started, I thought that we might just start. I might ask each of you to talk a little bit about what it is that you love about the theater or about the arts, because obviously that's part of what brings you here. So I don't know who wants to go first, but I'll hand it off to one of you to talk a little bit about that. So why the theater, why the arts? Annie, start.
Hi everybody, it's such a privilege to be here. I'm so excited to be in this amazing company. My name's Annie Leist, and I am from an organization called Art Beyond Sight that I have worked at for about 2 or 3 years at this point. We're an organization that's been around for nearly 30 years. But before I got involved in the field of cultural accessibility, which is basically this idea of making the arts and culture more accessible for people of all abilities, I was an artist myself, and I still am. I'm also, for longer than I've been an artist, I have been a member of the blind and low vision community. So I am legally blind, I have no vision in my right eye, and very limited vision in my left. But I've always been an artist, a visual artist myself. I'm a painter. And I've also always, for a long time, been a huge fan of the theater. I studied abroad for a year in London when I was in college and was required to take a class called The Theater in London. And
Hardly a requirement.
and we were forced to go to the theater once a week. And I had a couple other friends who were just as taken by it as I was, and so we wound up, I probably went to the theater an average of 2 or 3 times a week in that semester, and it was amazing, and I was in such withdrawal when I came back to my hometown in North Carolina, and the West End was not there. So now that I live in New York, I try to go as often as I can, and I think actually one of the things that I love about the theater, and I think this is probably from my background as an artist, I'm particularly fascinated with how the environments, the worlds of the productions that are on stage can be so convincingly created by the set designers, and in particular the lighting designers. That's something that I think in a parallel universe, I'm a lighting designer.
I'm Lisa Goring from Autism Speaks, and professionally we hear from so many of our families how important theater is as an experience for an entire family to do that together, but then also how those with autism really connect to the characters. And so it's been terrific where we have been able to work to make sure that theater is accessible to people with autism and their families. And then personally, I am the parent of a 19-year-old young man with autism who absolutely loves the theater. In fact, I was just saying, all he wants for Christmas or his birthday are theater tickets. So
We're all for that.
Yes. So personally and professionally, this is very important.
Hi, I'm Victor Calise. I'm Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. I'm really happy to be here to make my Broadway debut. It is pretty cool looking out at all of it. I remember when I first came to Broadway, when I first got injured back in 1994, and I came to Broadway because tickets back then were like $7, and I was able to take, my date on the $14. Like, how great was that? But what I really loved about it is how the theater comes alive, and how you're able to experience it and see all this beautiful things happening right in front of you. I now have an 11-year-old daughter who aspires to be on this stage one day, and I've taken her lots of Broadway plays. Not this one, not yet. It's going to take a while, and hopefully it runs this long. But it really is great to be here. I want to thank Ken for putting this together. And I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for taking an interest in this. Some of you may take an interest in this because it's part of your job. And at some point in your life, disability will affect you. It's just a matter of when. So just think of this as building for your future. So thank you.
Hello, I'm DJ Kurs. I'm from Deaf West Theater in Los Angeles. And I hope some of you have seen Spring Awakening. Thank you. I was lucky enough to grow up in Southern California, where there is Deaf West Theater in close proximity to my home. And I grew up with an appreciation for theater. And there's nowhere else that exemplifies that like New York. And people here love and understand theater, as I do. And Deaf West is one of the few producing sign language theaters to this day in the country. And we were very excited to bring theater to young audiences and to more deaf people, because we think that that's where appreciation of the arts begins, is with young people. And because of my own story. It has been one of the great pleasures of my career to be here in New York and to have deaf people flying in from all over the country, to celebrate with old friends from other parts of the country, to see this performance on Broadway together. It was a first Broadway production for many of them to see, or to see a professionally produced piece of theater. And that is really inspiring for me as an artistic director.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I was thinking about as we got ready for this panel was to ask you a little bit, to share some of your experiences about bright spots in accessibility as you've experienced them. I mean, I think we just heard from David about a real bright spot for this show, which has been very, very special, and for all the people who have come to see it. But thinking in your own personal experiences, or folks you've heard from, people you may have heard from through your work, what are some of the bright spots that exist out there now, both here, and we've got folks here not only from New York, but from venues around the country, so we don't have to limit it just to a conversation about here. But anyone want to go with that? Lisa?
I can start.
Yeah.
Theater Development Fund has actually done
This was not a plug.
No. But it has been absolutely terrific. There have been several autism-friendly performances, both in New York, in Boston. I know our chapter in Boston had worked with them, and both of those performances sold out very, very quickly. And our families are so thankful for the opportunity to be able to come and experience a Broadway show. And the other piece is that for some, maybe the only way that they see theater, for others it's a stepping stone, and they feel more comfortable once they've done that to be able to then really think about all that the theater has to offer and do shows that maybe are not just autism friendly. So it really has been tremendous, tremendous benefit to many of our families.
Thanks. Yeah. Victor?
I have to say, one of the most recent ones is seeing this play. Spring Awakening has put something together that is extraordinary. The way that theater should be for everybody. It's so inclusive. from the actors, his first person in a wheelchair on Broadway. He believe it's taken this long for it to happen? I mean, it's insane. You know, the Americans with Disabilities Act has been around for 25 years, and we finally got to that. And seeing the way that the spoken word is so intertwined with the written word and sign language, it's really what and how theater should be every day. And definitely TDF. TDF has been on this forefront for so long. I reached out to them when I just within the last 3-4 years, and how do we make theater more accessible? And they were doing it, and they've been doing it for so long. The league has been behind them. Charlotte has been behind them and pushing this. But TDF, I want to thank you for what you're doing.
Well,
continue to do that.
Thank you. This is not about TDF. This is about what.
No, I know it's not, but it's just. I mean, it's the bright spot of what's happening.
And I think something that's important to understand, and then I want to hear from the other two, though, is that it helps that we were an organization whose mission is about making sure that people can get to the theater. So if you have that, if you have that in the front, I think that probably made it easier at the beginning for us to look at programs that would help do that. So it kind of was in our consciousness sooner, but it's been part of what we've done for a long time. Annie?
I have just a couple very quick points. First of all, I have to confess I have never been to one of the TDF-sponsored Describe programs. But they're really amazing. Description is something that can be done at many performances where someone who is blind wears a headset and there is a person who is describing the non-verbal action that's happening on the stage, and the costumes and the lighting and all the amazing things that are part of this environmental experience. And because I haven't been to one, I sort of sought out some testimonials from colleagues of mine who do theater description, and the continuous thing that I kept seeing that was a thread through all of them was people saying, I never thought I would enjoy the theater again after I lost my vision, or I didn't really think I could follow what was happening on stage, or after going to a Described performance, I didn't realize how much I had been missing and how important these details were. And most importantly, now I'm tempted to go to things that I might not have gone to before, when I know that there's going to be something there for me that will help me. So that's one point, is broadening the audience. Another point is, for me personally, when my 13-year-old niece came to New York and we took her to see Wicked, we also took her to the behind-the-scenes tour that is offered. And it's not something that is designed for accessibility audiences specifically, or people with disabilities, but I can tell you that it was actually really useful for me to understand how things were arranged on the stage, and to sort of be prepared ahead of time to really sort of get it. And I knew where to look, and I knew where to pay attention a little bit better, and I got the story so much better than I think I would have if I had not participated in that tour. So things that are not necessarily designed for people with disabilities actually can benefit everyone.
And David, is kind of a curveball on this question for you, as I thought maybe it's not fair to talk to you about bright spots in the theater, that's where you make your living, but maybe to talk a little bit, if you would, because I've heard you talk on other occasions, about what it's been like to create careers for some people who might not otherwise have thought they could have a career in the theater, as a different kind of bright spot.
So from a different perspective, I can say I appreciate making art accessible to the deaf community, and to other disabilities as well. From an audience perspective, we mentioned previously about this is some people's first time to see a Broadway show or professional. They've come from different cities, all regional theaters across the country that maybe provide interpreting or captioning. There's a range of sophistication in the theater world, and accessibility, of course, and we like to have those discussions as well. For us in the deaf community, it's been we have many great artists, dancers, choreographers, all kinds of artists. We have a great creative talent pool. And a big part of our mission is to give those artists accessibility to work, and to make them successful on their own terms, and to increase accessibility for them. I only wish that there were more opportunities for various artists of different disabilities.
Thank you. Okay, so we've talked about bright spots. I think now I'd like to turn to a conversation to hear some suggestions, really practical. People who know me will know that I'm kind of known for being very practical. And I'm interested in, you know, what are, we all know we know the big stuff, we know the things that we need to be doing globally, we know the things that we need to be investing in. But what are some practical things that you would like to suggest, some of which people may already be doing, but things that occur to you that theaters and performing arts venues could be doing that aren't so complicated? They almost, some of them might go in the category of duh, but you know, what are things that you'd like to share as kind of things that folks could be thinking about doing to make it easier for people to go to the theater?
So I think it's important that you hire someone with a disability. Right? The idea of having someone with a disability on your staff. Why? Because they're going to see things that you don't. It's going to build acceptance and tolerance in your workplace, and you're just going to get accessibility. So I'm going to ask a question. How many people out there have people with disabilities that they employ in their offices? All right. All right, here's another question. How many people out there have people with people that wear glasses that work with them? Right? Yeah, a lot more hands go up, right? So I mean, yeah, I want to see more hands next time I ask that question. It's important. If we hire people with disabilities, it changes the perception of everything that we do. And another note is that there are close to 1 million people with disabilities here in New York City. You know what a revenue stream that is to, you know, and that's just not talking about the 54 million people that visit New York City every day. We take a guesstimate about that 10% of those are people with disabilities. So you got 5 million people with disabilities visiting the city a year. Billion-dollar industry. It makes sense to make your things accessible, and more importantly, to hire people with disabilities on your staff.
Other practical suggestions? Annie, do you have a list? She told me that ahead of time.
I promise I'll be brief.
No, that's
I know
okay.
we could all go on about these sorts of things forever, which is why I'm really excited that we're going to have opportunities to talk with you guys a little more informally afterwards. But one of the things I want to sort of get people thinking about is that accessibility doesn't start when someone arrives at the theater. It actually starts beforehand, when someone tries to find out about the event or the production, when someone goes to the website. It's really important to make sure that you are making your production welcoming before someone even gets to it or decides to attend it. Things like making your website accessible for people who use screen readers, navigate the computers and phones with their ears rather than their eyes. Making ticketing really accessible for people with all abilities, having lots of different options for getting ticketing, not just a phone number or an online ordering opportunity or an in-person ordering opportunity. Describing the images on your website, making sure you have really great directions to your institution or to your venue. And also talking about what will be there when the person gets there. Things like, you know, do you have, you know, making it really clear that there are special seats available for people in wheelchairs, making it really clear about when there will be captioned or signed interpreted or described shows. Making sure you get the word out, because if you do all of this amazing stuff but you don't connect with the audience and the audience doesn't know that they will be welcomed, then you will be missing out on all of those people that Victor has been talking about.
I would agree with everything that Annie had said as well as Victor, because we certainly, employment is a key piece for everyone. But the idea that knowing ahead of time what's going to happen is really important. Knowing that there's a space that they could go to if they need a break is really important. Knowing a little bit more about the show. For a lot of people with autism, if they know ahead of time what's going to happen, and what the story's about, they really enjoy it that much more. And so those are things that certainly help people with autism, but really I think would help everyone. And so that really has been an important piece for certainly the autism community.
You want to, David?
For me, it's important to view accessibility as a long-term process. It's not something we're going to achieve. We're not finished doing it, and we're going to have to keep doing it. You can't think, oh, I've done the general provisions they told me I should do, and I'm good, right? No, we have to keep providing a new bar and setting it higher and higher.
Just make it part of your culture. Who you are, what you do, how you approach it. And if you're not disabled, think about that person in your situation and be able to build for that capacity. Think about seating within your theater and making sure that seating is accessible, not just in the back, but in the front as well, or in the side, or on a different level. So, thinking about that things and really, again, making it part of your culture.
I think it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. It's wonderful to be able to do description, to be able to do captioning, to be able to do programming that is for a targeted audience or people with a particular disability. But even something as simple as what was done today, when you came in, you were offered two different types of programs, one that was regular print and one that was larger print. And that was actually a really quick and easy and relatively inexpensive thing to do, or making your program available on your website or ahead of time in a digital format so somebody can connect with it and get the information from it in the way that works best for them. It doesn't have to be complicated. And also a lot of it has to do with really great customer service. Expanding that culture of inclusion and welcoming to make sure that the venue that your production is at trains their frontline staff, and basically awareness, diversity, and tolerance, and trying to get to yes with all of the people who come to your productions. A lot of it is great customer service, which again benefits everybody.
I think something that Victor said that's really important, not only about who you hire, but certainly at TDF, for instance, when we started the Autism Initiative, Lisa Carlin, who's here, I think, and who's the director of our access programs, she knew that we couldn't do this on our own. So we reached out to experts in the field, we reached out to Lisa. We didn't know anything about what was required to provide an autism-friendly performance. What we knew was that it was something we should do. And we also didn't assume that we had it right. We didn't finish learning the first time. I mean, the first performance, I think our list of things we would do differently the next time was longer than our list of things that we were glad we'd done right the first time. And a really simple example was we didn't really think about the fact that we were going to need family restrooms, that we were going to need more than one family restroom, right? So those are the kind of really simple things. And I don't think we would have, you can't do this alone. We did this because we had other people who were helping us. And I think you have to keep learning. It's what David says, you're never done. I remember, and also it's talk to the people who need the service. My father had Parkinson's, and by the end of the time when he was able to be out and about, my parents loved to go to the theater, and so they came to New York, and I said, I can get you, I got them house seats for History Boys. And Mom said, what seats? I said, I got house seats. She said, oh, those are going to be in the first 10 rows. I can't do that. We need to be in the back row, right? Because the least distance your father has to travel is the most important. He needed to come in and sit down and get out. He could, right? So that to me was a lesson of, you have to actually talk to people and say, what do you need? What do you want? As opposed to second guessing. I thought it was an aisle seat, as opposed to the last row in the theater, right?
I think it's important to absolutely understand and realize that there are lots of nonprofit organizations that are out there that are willing to help for free.
Right.
And we're there. I mean, I know the mayor's office would love to come back and give everybody a training on disability etiquette. We do that, and Martha, my staff's over there, and smiling right now, thinking, yeah, let's get this done. So, but it's free.
Absolutely, we would love to do things like that.
Us as well.
We can fly David in any time from now, but who's going to leave California in the winter? Okay.
But if I could just say that it's exciting to me that we have had many firsts on Broadway. The first person in a wheelchair, also the first deafblind interpreted performance here on Broadway. I don't know if I've gotten all the firsts, but even though we've achieved those things, I still feel like there's so much more to do. So much more. And I think that as we learn from each other and make those kinds of conversations as we go along, that it's important that we capitalize on the relationship we're building and keep the accessibility ever evolving.
Right, I think that's important, I think conversation. As a last question, let's move beyond our field and look outside the theater. Dangerous as that might be, let's look outside the theater. And could you just think, I mean, what are some industries, who are some folks who are doing it even better than we are? Where are places we should look? Where might you point us for some tips on how to do it better or more quickly, or who's doing really good stuff outside the theater?
I can jump in with that because one of the fields that Art Beyond Sight works a lot with is the museum and cultural institution community. And we're very fortunate to live in New York, where museums like the Metropolitan Museum and the Museum of Modern Arts and others have been welcoming people with disabilities for years and years and years. And so it's very interesting to sort of see what different levels of accessibility and inclusion are being focused on. And two things about that. One thing that's really interesting about the museum community is that they have banded together to share resources and share information. There are two different organizations off the top of my head in New York that I can think of where people who are working in accessibility, either in the education or visitor services portion of the museum, come together to meet regularly and connect with each other and learn from each other and share information. And there's also conferences out there. One that jumps to mind is the Leadership Education in Arts and Disability that's hosted by the Kennedy Center every year in August. And they have tracks that are specifically about performing arts venues and theatrical productions. They also bring in museums and state arts organizations and other areas of art and culture, but it's been going for 15 years and it's a wonderful resource.
Those are terrific resources, I think, for everyone. Just some other sort of resources. Airlines. We've found that we've been able to work with airlines to welcome families. We train up front the airline staff, the airport staff, TSA, and then they invite families to actually go through the whole process. So before they buy that ticket for a plane, they can actually go to Kennedy Airport, check in, go to the gate, go through TSA, get on the plane, and the plane goes around the tarmac, and then they get off.
And
we've heard...
Do all airlines do that?
No, we partnered with JetBlue, and they've done it. Yeah, and they really have, and all of their staff volunteers. They are not paid for that time. They all volunteer. They've actually had other airline staff come to volunteer with them so that they can learn about people with disabilities, and also that the people with disabilities can learn about how to use air travel. So that's been one. And then we've also, Major League Baseball has also done a really nice job of learning about disabilities and what they can do to be more welcoming to families, whether it's lowering the sound a little bit in certain sections, having certain sections that are a little bit more friendly to a certain disability, and even vendors and the food court people to be able to train them so that they're more welcoming as well.
Yeah, certainly JetBlue, we work with them. All the cultural institutions, the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities is constantly figuring out ways that we can work with them through their design and construction programs and services. New York Yankees do a great job, excellent job here in the city, Madison Square Garden. Yankees really do go over and beyond. You can look there. One place that actually, it's a shameless plug, I've been working with them for a while. Every March, there is the Real Abilities Film Festival. Go check it out. It's theaters throughout the city. Real Abilities is just great. The audio description, captioning, films by people with disabilities. Go check it out. You're going to see something happening in March. There'll be ads throughout taxi cabs. It is certainly a great thing to go check out.
David?
Movie theaters. And you would think that they would be more enlightened, that the film industry, that they're doing a better job of accessibility than many productions are. They have various kinds of captioning available, review captioning, goggle captioning, so Broadway has a lot to do to catch up to the film industry.
And I would guess that when you fly, Lisa, you're more likely to fly JetBlue. I would guess that you guys go to the Yankees more than you might go to for other reasons as well.
Full disclosure, I'm a Met fan.
Which is only to make the point. I think that's really important, of course, which is on top of everything else. Not only is being as welcoming to as large a group of people as possible the right thing to do, it makes some good business sense. I mean, we're up to 4 autism-friendly performances a year, and those sell out every time. So,
Just throw out a couple of numbers. So there's 1 million people, close to 1 million people with disabilities, and they have friends, families, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers that will follow them to these areas.
no, and I think let's face it, I think to some extent we've been hindered in the theater, and it's one of the reasons that, the movies films are maybe a little different. I mean, I think we've missed the part that says that people go out, right? People are going to go out. People want to do things. People with disabilities are going to go out just like anyone else, and that's the part that I think is slowly getting traction. And I think that's the point of a conversation like this. Okay, how do we make people feel more welcome? I think we're at time. So if Victor, if there's a closing comment any of you want to make, please do. And otherwise, I think we have a treat ahead of us.
Just get it done. People with disabilities want to be part of society. Well, not that want, we are part of society. Just make it more desirable for us to come out and see everything that you have to offer. Because we're working to make New York City the most accessible city in the world, and we need your help.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you. But we need you. We need you to work with us. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you collaborating. We appreciate Ken Davenport, everyone who's here making this a success every step along the way. It's a team effort. It truly is.
Well, I want to thank our panelists. I also, I've been able to hear some kind words about TDF. I want to acknowledge some members of the TDF team. Lisa Carling, who runs our access program, Christina Trevino, who's here, and has been a major part of something you're going to hear about in a minute, so I just didn't want, it's not just me. And I was really struck through this conversation. We've been talking both about the power of seeing and experiencing stories from folks with disabilities, from the stage and from the audience. And this is a two-way experience. And I think it's really important that, I'm really glad that we have focused and talked about both sides of the equation, both on stage and in the audience. So thank you all very much for being here and for listening.